The devastated relatives of Priestland on the day they've been waiting 2 years for. In 2014, the 18-year-old met a violent end at Niagara Park, stabbed in the chest 6 times while in his car. Today, Rachel Manevsky, one of 2 people accused of his murder, returned to the witness box to give her account of that fateful night. Crown Prosecutor Brendan Campbell focused on the moment Mr Priestland was attacked, referring to Manevsky's co-accused Andrew Perkins, saying, "When you saw him on the driveway, he was bloodied, pale and looked like he was going to faint. He looked shocked. Did you ask, 'Are you okay?' Manevsky replied, 'No.' You jumped to the conclusion you knew he'd stabbed Kieran. The accused said, 'Yes.' The prosecutor then said, 'I suggest you knew because you were at the car. Did you insist Andrew Perkins tell you what happened?' Manevsky told the court, 'No, I was frightened and panicking.' 'Did you call an ambulance?' 'No, I didn't. I freaked out.' 'Did you ask Ashley what happened?' 'No. I suggest you knew.' While on the stand, Manevsky admitted to lying to police after Mr Priestland's death, saying she pretended she knew nothing. The court also heard that some years ago, as part of a dispute, Manevsky pressed a tree branch against a young woman's forehead, making a threat against her and her family. Manevsky has pleaded not guilty to murder. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
The Chamber's been lobbying for about 2 years now with the state government, and it's just when is it enough is enough for them to do something about it.
Owen Keeley, longtime friend of Robert Pashkus, and today fiercely denying any involvement in his murder. Mr Keeley admitted to buying marijuana and speed from Mr Pashkus for years and says he last saw him and his partner, Stacey McMorr, 2 days before their death. Under questioning by counsel assisting the inquest, Peggy Dwyer, Mr Keeley said, "I've had 8 years of bullshit over this shit. I almost killed myself over it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. If I could help you, darling, I would." He denied being anywhere near Caves Beach on the night of January 6, 2008. Ms Dwyer asked Mr Keeley to explain why records showed his phone was in the Caves Beach area that night. Its signal had been detected by telephone towers nearby. Mr Keeley said he had no idea how that happened. He continued, saying, "I didn't go to Caves. I didn't kill no one, man. I'm not a killer." Mr Keeley claims he was at the house of his friend, Christian Price. His other friend, Simone Cook, had difficulty remembering any detail. Deputy State Coroner Hugh Dillon asking her, "There's no reason to lie, is there?" "I can't remember." "You're not trying to protect anyone, are you?" "No, definitely not." "Well, it's very interesting and coincidental that most of the stuff you can't remember has got to do with Owen Keeley. Are you afraid of Owen Keeley?" "No." She left amid jeers from the gallery. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
They've ripped out the guts but kept the heart. Hunter Street's family hotel is back thanks to a new fit-out. It's the new owner's 5th pub restoration. He says he was drawn to the site's checkered past.
We've done some pretty traditionally bad areas in Sydney, like Redfern, Surrey Hills and Petersham and stuff like that. So it's kind of used to it by now.
Formerly known as the Silk Hotel and the Duck's Nuts before that, the premises closed in 2014 after being named one of the most violent venues in New South Wales.
Because it hadn't been open in so long, the place was in tatters. We've had to replace just simple things like a lot of the windows have had to go, all the floorings had to be redone, a lot of tiling and stuff like that as well.
The venue's new owner is hoping to turn a corner on the venue's violent past, but extra licence restrictions will still be imposed, left over from the Silk Hotel. The liquor licence still carries 2 strikes with it, meaning the hotel remains on thin ice.
With those things, like they do expire eventually, and I think our first one is actually due to expire in August, so just sort of be good and don't muck up.
Retrofittings and photos from Newcastle's past, an indication of the spirit the new management is trying to capture.
Places like this, like we can start something and actually create a better, vibrant, more vibrant city.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
Knights players have been on the wrong end of the law more than most this season. While their coach accepts the bulk of the charges have been warranted, he can't accept some.
We've had our fair share this year of charges where we felt we could understand why, but some of the charges this week, I just feel the inconsistency on the way things are done from the match review committee and how they charge certain things is a bit strange to me.
And Brown can point to plenty of cases.
Martin Tapau decapitated someone and got 1 week, and then Sione Mataudia gets a week when the opposition player just got up and played the ball and run away. We got the short end of the stick. I could pick out 2 or 3 tackles that were far worse than anything that Daniel Safidi or Sione did on the weekend, and yet we got 2 blokes watching.
Dane Gagai trained by himself today after missing last week through quad soreness. His coach expects he'll take his place at the back.
We'll have a meet with the medical staff later and we'll know a little more then, but they seem reasonably positive, but if he's not 100%, we certainly won't play him.
Brown today confirmed his interest in signing Greg Bird. The 31-year-old Hunter product is contracted to the Gold Coast next season, but it's understood he could be lured back home.
We're just working through a few things, but as we've said, a player like his style of play is someone that we feel could benefit the club, but there's nothing eventuated anywhere.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
It's been just over a week since Ebzery was named in the Australian squad, but it still hasn't quite sunk in.
It's been nice getting up here to Newcastle and seeing Mum and Dad, and I think when I kind of looked at them, it sunk in a little bit more. But no, I think maybe when I get over there, it'll be a bit more realistic.
Along with her Opals teammates, she'll fly to the US tomorrow for 3 pre-games friendlies. A clash with the American women at New York's Madison Square Garden should provide the perfect warm-up for facing Brazil in Rio.
We played them in January over at the test event in Rio, obviously. The crowd's going to be crazy, but I mean, that's what you want as a basketballer.
The Aussie squad contains 7 debutantes, but the goal remains the same.
The Opals have been a successful program for a long time now, so medal, is definitely an expectation. And we're aiming for gold, and, that's our expectation.
Ebzery's international adventure will continue after Rio. Instead of playing in the WNBL, the 26-year-old has signed her first international contract and will play in Russia with Dynamo Moscow.
How's your Russian?
Yeah, not great at all. Yeah, so that'll definitely be a work in progress.
And are they all right with that? Like they've got things to tell you, we...
We'll soon know the fate of a controversial plan to build a mosque in the Hunter Valley. Amanda Douglas joins us live from outside Cessnock Council chambers, where dozens of people have gathered ahead of tonight's meeting. Amanda, what's the mood like there?
Paul, well, this proposal has prompted a passionate and at times very heated response from the community, and tonight is no different. 24 speakers are registered at the council meeting, which will approve or deny a planned mosque at Buchanan, just east of Cessnock. Earlier, supporters and protesters gathered outside the council chambers in eager anticipation of an outcome. There has been a strong police and security presence, but thankfully the crowd has been well behaved and peaceful. Council planners have recommended the mosque be approved, given that it complies with planning procedures, and that's despite 450 signatures, or I should say 450 submissions being lodged in opposition. In the end, though, the fate of the proposal will come down to a vote by councillors, and given the amount of public interest, it's likely that debate will rage long into the night.
Amanda Douglas reporting there.
Police and security on hand, Cessnock Council was anticipating trouble.
I've lived in the area for 40 years. Why would I want a mosque?
I find that most of the local Muslim people are quite genuine people that are just looking for a peaceful existence.
Tempers soon flared when some were shut out of the meeting.
Won't let people in. They reckon the capacity. They've let all the pro-mosque people in, but all the ratepayers are not in there. All the residents are not in there. It's just not on. And they say they haven't got any speakers set up so we can hear, because they didn't have time. How long have they known this is going to be going on for?
They won't even open the door so we can listen. It's like it's blocked off to all these people.
Instead, information was relayed to those outside. In the end, councillors voted 6-4 in favour of the mosque.
I listened to the community, read the submissions, met with members of the Buchanan Residents Action Group, and they couldn't convince me why I should refuse it.
Following the meeting, many took to social media, those against the decision unleashing a tirade of insults and threats. Several suggesting the building be burnt down, saying, "I bet a packet of matches and a litre or two of petrol, it won't last long." Another labelling the decision as shameful, while there were also calls for council to be replaced by an administrator. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
The last time Andrew Lovett went to purchase drugs from Robert Pashkus, he was told 2 words: shop shut. Mr. Lovett claims Mr. Pashkus told him, "I'm under federal surveillance," and that he got pulled up down the beach and got searched. Mr Lovett told the inquiry many people could have murdered Mr Pashkus and his partner Stacey McMaugh, and was asked, can you actually remember where you were on the 5th of January 2008? Well, I wasn't up there, put it that way. I didn't go to Rob's. Mr Lovett explained to the inquest he was told about Robert and Stacey's death at around 8 a.m. on January the 6th, while at a friend's house with several other people, but couldn't recall just by who. The counsel assisting then explained that their bodies weren't actually discovered until 11 a.m, meaning someone there knew about Robert and Stacey's death before their bodies were found. His reply, it wasn't me. Former dealer Mark Lambourne explained Mr Pashkus feared he was being followed, saying he asked me to go for a run around the block and tell me if there's any vehicles here. Mr Lambourne says he was at home with girlfriend Christina Wells on the night of the murders, despite phone records showing several calls were made between the pair. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
I feel incredibly humbled and honoured to be representing the people of Paterson, and it is nice to have the poll officially declared.
Coming to life, the vision for the future of a largely forgotten stretch of our much-loved coastline. The Council's concept plans show South Newcastle Beach transformed into a vibrant hub. The centrepiece, a big blue skate haven.
It's a street-style skate facility. It will have parkour facilities. It's a new kiosk, new amenity buildings, and great landscaping, as well as shade, lighting, seating, all the infrastructure, including public art.
It's the latest and arguably most needy Newcastle coastal stretch to get the Bathers Way treatment. Currently underutilised, the Lord Mayor believes that will change.
This section has been our toughest in terms of planning for construction, and these initial concept plans are very exciting, and they will put South Newcastle Beach on the map.
Work is continuing to repair the seawall, and it's hoped with government funding support the new project will start late next year. Meanwhile, another iconic spot is set for a revamp by Christmas, with an amusement cycle hire and cafe business slated for the old Lynch's Prawns building.
Lynch's Hub, and that's, I guess, a nod to the cycling hub sort of function that we're hoping to have, but also the past of the site, which a lot of people will remember it as Lynch's Prawns, which was a fairly iconic business in Newcastle.
A community bike repair workshop is also planned, supported by a crowdfunding campaign on Possible to start next week.
Quad's feeling a lot better now. It was good I had that game off against the Storm, even though I would have loved to be out there with the boys. They've done an outstanding job, so I'm just hoping I can come back this week and contribute to the team. Still tough to talk about, so but I'll just try to stay positive and just try and move on and hopefully make this game have a lot better result than last time.
He narrowly missed out on a ticket to Brazil, but it seems nothing can dent Cameron Ivory's love for mountain biking.
I had about 4 days off the bike and then I was getting itchy feet and needed to get back on. We were having some pretty good weather when I got back, so yeah, I couldn't miss that.
Not so long ago, Ivory was racing locally in mountain bike, road and cyclocross events. He's now ranked second in Australia and was considered a near certainty for one of the 2 spots available. But his quest to compete at the Rio Games was crushed last week.
I was quite surprised when I heard the news. I never assumed that I'd be in the team, but I thought I had done enough to earn my spot in the team. I was happy with all of my performances, had a few mechanical mishaps in a few of the events, but I was still happy with the lap times that I could do.
Ivory understands team selection is subjective and has taken the knock in his stride.
I wasn't in my best form throughout the World Cups. I thought it was enough to get me into the team, but yeah, I was just focusing on that one day at the Olympics, and that's where I was hoping everything would come together.
Tokyo 2020 is now his long-term goal. In the meantime, Ivory will target the World Championships in Australia next year, followed by the Commonwealth Games in 2018.
The year after, the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast. I'd love to be able to get myself to a level where I can potentially podium.
Played really well on the weekend in our reserves. He was really lively. He played midfield. He's played forward for a fair bit of the game. So, but we also know he's capable of playing back because he's so good overhead. So that's a chance, and we'll have to look at that.
We've missed probably a big horse like that for a few seasons now, but hopefully there's one in this crop, a lovely crop of young'uns coming up, so cross the fingers for that. Gee, it's been a blessing, it's been a great track, and everyone can't wait for the course proper. You know, it looks so good, and we'll probably have the best racing surface in Australia by then, I'd say.
They're allegations that have rocked abuse survivor Peter Gogarty, claims of a pedophile ring involving a senior Anglican priest and an alleged cover-up by a former Newcastle bishop.
I knew that there were pedophile priests in the Anglican church, but I think the extent of the cover-up in the Anglican community, it's just, as I said, I was surprised, but I was shocked.
The ABC's 7:30 program first aired the allegations, claiming former Newcastle Anglican Bishop Roger Hurft failed to report complaints of child sexual abuse against Father Peter Rushton. Peter Gogarty believes the accusations will prompt more survivors of clergy abuse to come forward ahead of a royal commission in Newcastle next month.
So I think there'll be some legitimate anger amongst a lot of survivors that how did this happen? How did they keep letting this happen?
The Newcastle Diocese has declined to comment on the allegations leading into the Commission hearings. Hurft, now the Archbishop of Perth, has also declined citing legal advice, while Australia's most senior Anglican says the Church has worked hard to improve protocols and practices and that it is very open to advice from the Royal Commission. The first hearing will get underway in Newcastle on August 2nd. Amanda Douglas, NBN News. It's the end of an era for 5 of the region's finest.
It's mixed emotions. I'm excited about the next stage of my life, but it's tinged with a bit of sadness that I'm leaving such a great organisation and a great group of workmates.
It really sunk home a little while ago when I started emptying my locker out, actually. That means it's final, you know.
Ken Isles, Phil Moore, Pierce Benson, Dave Reed and John Playford each have notched up decades of service. Their careers a patchwork of good and bad, including events that have shaped the Hunter. Ken Isles was on the ground in the hours following the '89 earthquake, helping pull a man from the collapsed Newcastle Workers Club.
I think of him regularly and just think how lucky he was that he was where he was.
Years later, he would join fellow paramedic Dave Reed at the deadly Thredbo landslide.
We're in Arctic conditions, it's freezing, there's snow, rain, sleet.
When the Pasha-Bolka storm hammered Newcastle in 2007, Pierce Benson was in the thick of it, rescuing residents trapped by rising floodwater.
I was going in and looking at cars that were in drains and people stuck in houses through the floodwater.
And while they've witnessed horror, it's the countless lives they've helped save that make this job one they'll cherish well into retirement.
We see the best and worst in people, but, you know, a lot of things do bring a smile to your face.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
They may be at the start of their training, but in just 2 years' time, Robert Wright and Beuan Jacobson will be fully qualified commercial pilots. A dream made possible thanks to a new Indigenous pilot program.
This has been a way to actually break into the aviation industry, and it's great.
I never thought somebody that wasn't kind of in the industry would be able to get to a position of that calibre, but looks like it's happening.
The Kempsey locals are the first students to take part in the initiative, which has taken several years to get off the ground. CEO of Dream Sky Aviation, Matt Spicer, felt there was a real need to introduce more Indigenous Australians into the field.
The industry is very heavily underrepresented by Aboriginal people, so we thought it would be a good idea to improve that.
The program is believed to be the first of its kind in the country, and it's all happening in the Hunter's backyard.
Very exciting, great for the students, great for our community and great for the airport.
And there's already discussions underway to see it expanded.
We've been approached by a number of different councils to have the program start at their airports, so we're already getting a large amount of interest from national councils.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
I live here with a lot of happy memories. It's sad to say goodbye to Ozzy the Mozzie. He's been here for 22 years, so we are good mates.
Michael Ennis is a unique player, a leader at the Sharks and one of the best sledgers in the NRL. Chris Adams can't wait for the challenge.
Sort of gives you a sort of rough area where you're at too. So, and like I'm a long shot off from where he is, and he's a great player, and I'll be looking forward to playing against him.
Adams's return to the NRL came as a surprise. The 29-year-old has knuckled down at training with club legend Danny Badiris. The extra workload has taken its toll.
Pretty full on at training. My body definitely took its toll, and sort of mentioned to Betsy, mate, just take it a bit easy. I've gone from doing hardly nothing to all this, and so we kind of agreement just to ease off a bit.
Only a month ago, Adams was playing with Lakes in the Newcastle Rugby League.
In local league, you can spare a couple of seconds here and there, and in the NRL, you get no time. It's just go, and you just sort of got to keep moving.
Beresfield Bears Junior, Andrew Everingham loves coming back home.
Yeah, this is where it all happened. Started playing here when I was 6 and finished up when I was 15.
It was then Everingham began plying his trade in Sydney. He spent 6 years playing New South Wales Cup for Manly and Wentworthville. It was a grind, but he was desperate to live out a dream.
I sort of put my eggs in one basket, so I got to the stage where I had to make it, but there was always that belief that I could, so that's why I stuck it out.
His opportunity came at the South Sydney Rabbitohs in 2012. Mild-mannered, Everingham doesn't go looking for the spotlight, but it found him in red and green. He equalled Israel Folau's record for most tries in a debut season.
I got to play with some great players like Inglis, Sutton, you name it, Kingy as well. Real fortunate to play alongside those boys.
He crossed for 21 tries in 40 games. And that's when Japanese rugby came calling.
I've enjoyed it a lot. Having something new to learn and being able to set some new goals has been really good for me.
Clubs can only field 3 non-Asian players at any time. Everingham's Filipino heritage makes him a valuable asset. Life as a professional is vastly different in Japan, where the majority of players represent the company they work for.
There's a lot of boys in the team that live in a dorm. And, we'll play, train, and then they'll head back to the dorm.
A high-profile import, Everingham is very well looked after. And if things go to plan, he'll continue his career in Japan for a while to come.
I'll get there at the start of August, and the season should finish at the latest by February. That's one of the good things about playing over there. The season's not as long. It's not as taxing on the body, so you can play a bit longer. Just signed another deal for another 2 seasons, so I'm loving that, and I head off next Friday.
these are designed for use on livestock animal species. So the fact that it's being used on a dog under these circumstances is definitely unreasonable, unnecessary and unjustified.
Treasured items which Tony Brown holds near. Medals and photos of his great-uncle who never made it home from the First World War. 21-year-old Victor Bluey Richardson was in France for a short time before he was killed in the Battle of Pozieres.
He had very serious injuries on the charge of the German blockhouse called Gibraltar, where an explosion artillery shell blew off one foot and badly injured his other, and he died of wounds after that occasion.
Local author Juan Marni also had a great-uncle who died in the battle. He researched Pozieres extensively for his book and says Australians suffered heavily.
It ended up being a 6-week battle because it continued on to a nearby location called Mouquet Farm. There was something like 24,000 Australian casualties, which equates to about a casualty rate of about 1 in every 3.
That included soldiers from the Hunter and northern New South Wales.
The people of Newcastle and northern region experienced losses that we have never seen since. It was absolutely horrendous.
And the great Australian historian Charles Bean said, which is famously said of Pozieres, that it's more densely sown with Australian sacrifice than any other place on earth.
It's because of those extensive losses, Mr Brown believes the battle deserves more recognition both nationally and locally as Australia prepares to mark its centenary.
Something I think now going forward for the next 100 years, that the Newcastle community, which was so disproportionately impacted upon this battle, could be thinking a lot more and doing a lot more with the greatest respect to forge closer bonds with the village of Pozieres and the local community.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
The last place pickers were hungry from the start, Geordie Connolly ploughing through the South's defence line and getting Maitland on the board early. Souths made the most of their home ground advantage, matching the effort minutes later in this play. Jake Lawrence finally finding a gap. Souths were relentless, getting the ball back in the right place just minutes later, Jay Edwards making it 2 for the home side. Liam Higgins setting up this perfect run at the try line, with number 5 Jared Flanagan making it through. In the second half, the Tooheys Cup third top try scorer William Heta added another notch to his season record, tapping this one in for himself. Luke Higgins then capitalised on a broken defence line from Maitland, breaking through for Souths again. Maitland's Steve Waitford eventually finding a break, but the run was brought down by Willie Heta. The Pickers made it through, though it was a rough landing for Brenton Horwood, hitting the goalposts on the way down. South's Tim Christie was the last to get over the line for the home side, sealing the deal at 36 points to 12. Georgina Smythe, NBN News. Gliding into Newcastle Harbour, dwarfing Nobby's headland, a very special delivery. A moment of anticipation and relief for those at Port Waratah Coal Services.
It's a $60-odd million investment in the Port of Newcastle, and it ensures our reliability, safety and performance of our Carrington terminal.
A drone capturing the bright yellow-hulled Happy Buccaneer against an inner-city backdrop, its final stop on an 8,000-kilometre journey from China. Pulling past Stockton en route to the Carrington terminal, the new shiploaders captured the attention of hundreds on the waterfront who stopped to snap a shot of the striking vessel. The new loaders offering a big step forward for the management of dust and noise in the harbour.
We have 3 ship loaders down there at the terminal at the moment, and those ship loaders have been there for 40 odd years and have done 300 odd million tonnes. So like all pieces of machinery, they're at the end of their working life, been very good, but time to move them on.
Once decommissioned, the old loaders will be shipped back to China for scrap. The ship may now be berthed, but the job is far from over. From next week, the loaders will be lifted off and onto the wharf to be reassembled to fit their new home. It's expected they'll be operational by Christmas. Georgina Smythe, NBN News. It's the bold plan for South Newcastle Beach, a vibrant vision for the future of the iconic stretch of coastline. But despite the hype, those at the city's oldest surf lifesaving club feel they're being left in the past.
Other structures are going ahead and good on them, but we really do not want to miss the boat. We can't handle the inadequacies of this building much longer. It's really knocking us around.
Costing nearly $13 million, the shoreline development is the latest in the Bathers Way project connecting Nobby's Beach to Merewether. But despite a 14-year battle for funding, there's no money for the surf club itself.
At the moment, we've got stuff stored at 4 places off-site. We can't fit even our rescue boards in the club. They don't even stand up. Our IRBs, can't store them here. We just don't have space to store our life-saving equipment.
The proposal is to move the clubhouse further to the south and into this hill to break down the barrier between the street and the beach, making it more open to the community. Newcastle Council says it's lodged 2 unsuccessful applications for funding for the project and will aim to secure future government grants. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
(1962) Phoenix behind me is a very nice car, and we also have a very nice 1928 Dodge Standard 6 which is here today.
It's a dream come true, to be honest. Since watching it on TV when I was little and watching all the players play T20 cricket for Sydney Thunder, I've always wanted to be a part of the team, and now that I am, I can't. It's amazing. Modern day cricket's changing so much now. Not only got Test cricket, one day, now T20 cricket as well, and the Big Bash is so popular. So the modern day cricket has got to be really good at all 3 formats.
Visitors Hamilton opened the game strongly through Leo Bertos.
Kane Goodchild thought he'd broken the deadlock. Eventually it was Goodchild and Daniel Bird who found a way through. In response, Broadmeadows' Jaden Barber forced a save out of Danny Ireland before James Virgili and Cale Bradbury combined to get the Magic back in it. Virgili then had a decent shout for a penalty. On the stroke of half-time, he suffered a dislocated shoulder and was taken to hospital. Barber had another go at beating Ireland after the break. Bird couldn't find a way to put Hamilton back on top, while Burtos's free kick was saved by Nick Hartnett. Goodchild then blew a golden opportunity to secure the 3 points. Both sides produced a mad scramble in the dying stages. First, it was Hamilton's turn. Broadmeadows' Bradbury hit the bar while Peter Haynes couldn't beat Ireland as the game finished 1-1. The grand final rematch was a battle for top spot, and it was the defending premiers who raced out of the blocks, Jack Kelly kicking for Kyle Kennedy. The Scorpions hit back with some razzle-dazzle, Scott Briggs, Isaac Briggs and Adam Grew combining. Macquarie hit the front when Briggs linked up with Josh Schmiedel. But in a seesawing first half, the Seagulls were back on level terms when Brad Murray got involved. When Kelly stole the ball inside his own 10, Lakes were back on the attack. A few plays later, the Seagulls had the advantage. When Chance Burgess barged over after the break, Lakes looked comfortable. But from that point on, it was all Macquarie. 2 backline moves to the left resulted in tries for the Scorps, before the Briggs boys once again worked wonders to tie the score at 24-all. The conversion sealed a thrilling win for the Scorpions.
I love Japan. I love the people, I love the culture, I love the food, and yeah, to finally get a win in a QS and to do it in Japan, I always seem to do well here. So yeah, I'm beyond happy.
Weaving their way through bushland, search crews look for any sign of Bindi cheers. The mother of 2, a well-known Taree horse trainer, hasn't been seen or heard from since just after 2 p.m. yesterday, and police are throwing everything at the search. SES volunteers on foot, police officers on bikes, sniffer dogs, and by early afternoon, pole air hovering above. Police say the 44-year-old stopped at this service station on John Renshaw Drive on her way back from a disappointing showing at a Sydney race meet. She fed her 4 horses, then texted her husband to say she'd left the car keys in the usual spot.
Yesterday afternoon, she left her vehicle, including some horses, which was rather unusual that somebody would do that, and she's abandoned them and walked off.
Police concentrating their search on bushland directly across from that service station. As you can see, conditions here are pretty harsh. Search crews are combing through what is dense bushland. The weather is also a concern for police. The mercury dipped to around 8 degrees last night. It's expected to be cold and windy again tonight. A friend who visited the search site told police Mrs. Cheers had had some dramas in the racing world, but it's out of character for her to leave her family and horses.
As to why she went to this area, we have no idea. Hopefully we can locate her, and hopefully we'll locate her safe and well so we can find the answers to those questions.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
From family friend to foe, and today on trial. Jamie Francis Sager accused of causing this in June last year, demolishing the home of Deborah Kerr and several cars with a bulldozer, in what Crown prosecutor Brian Costello argued was an irrational desire to exact some revenge. The Crown claims Sager was infuriated with Kerr after she asked him to move out in late 2014. The prosecution alleges Sager intended to cause harm, levelling the property even after making eye contact with those inside. The Crown describes Sager's actions as well thought out, carefully considered and meticulously executed, alleging he also went to great lengths to avoid being caught, by covering emergency stop buttons on the outside of the bulldozer with metal and tying the doors shut from the inside. But Public Defender Peter Chrisenthal told the court he was wrong, absolutely he was wrong. He stole a bulldozer for goodness sake, but maintained he didn't do any of that with the intent to endanger the lives of those three people. The court also heard a 000 call made by Kerr's cousin. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It was an irresistibly warm offer on a cold winter's day. Vats of steaming hot soup made from food once bound for the bin.
Vegetable and barley soup. I love barley. Yep.
How is it?
Beautiful.
It's the vegetable and barley soup. And how is it? It's delicious.
OzHarvest staged free lunches around the nation to highlight food waste and change attitudes.
In Australia, we waste about $8 to $10 billion worth of food every year, and that each household, it's $1,036 per household. You know, people could use that to pay their electricity bill.
Up to a third of our food ends up in landfill, but it seems OzHarvest's message is starting to get through.
I do try to make sure that I use all my vegetables and that I buy at home. I think it's quite important.
Encouraging more of us to do the same, the charity has started a social media campaign. The idea is to make a meal from leftovers or saved ingredients and post a photo with the hashtag #PledgeAPlate.
Making people aware what they can actually do with food that's in their cupboard already, that they really think, oh, I'll throw that out.
It could be the start of an online food revolution.
We often have students who will come up to us after the play and will tell us how much they loved it or how it really spoke to them or resonated with them and their experience.
I think it's a natural thing. I'm a very proud Novocastrian, and to be involved with a Novocastrian team that has Jets as their logo, it kind of makes sense. Last season, for the second half of the year, we podiumed every race and we won 2 of them. So if we can do that, we're in there with a realistic shot of being world champion.
Mullen felt the twinge shortly before half-time and didn't return after the break. The club says the strain is unrelated to his previous hamstring injury and he's expected to be out for 1 to 2 weeks. Mitch Barnett is also facing a fortnight on the sideline after being cited for this hit. He was named Players' Player for his effort against the Sharks in a game where he did plenty to rattle Paul Gallen. Nathan Ross today revealed Newcastle was out to earn respect from the Blues skipper.
At the end of the last game, we were called a reserve grade team by their captain. And so this game, we made a bit of a statement in the first half, but they ran away with it in the second half. But I know that everyone in our team's a lot better than reserve grade player.
Ross added to his tally of tries, but with his manager in talks with the Knights about extending his contract, he isn't getting carried away.
You can always do more. On the weekend, it was the first time I've run for less than 100 metres this season, so I'm not going to let that happen again. I've got to keep pulling my weight.
Still on league, and the Blues believe a more professional preparation was the key to ending Queensland's 17-year dominance in the women's state of origin.
They weren't just thrown together for a week's camp and said sort of do your best in the game. They sort of actually had game planning and skill development along the way, which really helped.
Caitlin Moran played a big part in the win, but the victory was even sweeter for fellow Hunter product Rebecca Young, who had experienced more losses than most.
To have come off with a draw last year and then come through, we were really confident, and it's just, it was an amazing feeling to actually get the win.
The 35-year-old is determined to regain her spot in the Australian side for the World Cup before helping New South Wales defend its new title.